On August 28, 2025, Yemen was yanked back into the world's headlines. An Israeli airstrike struck near Sanaa's Beit Boz, killing Ahmed al-Rahawi, the Houthi rebel prime minister, and more than a dozen ministers and senior officials. Their funerals followed days later, held in the capital as chants of revenge echoed through mosques. This moment, brutal, raw, modern, makes sense only when you understand Yemen's ancient past. Long ago, the Romans called this land Arabia Felix, Fortunate Arabia, for its mountains that yielded incense, myrrh, and spices more precious than gold, goods carried across continents, settling in temples and marketplaces from Egypt to Rome. But Yemen's geography, its fertile terraces and strategic port cities like Mocha and Aden, has also made it a magnet for empires, invaders, and rivals. From the Queen of Sheba's legendary court to Ottoman armies and British colonizers, Yemen's story is rooted in a land that is both blessed and besieged. But how did those ancient doors open, and where have they led us now? Long before the sound of drones and missiles filled Yemen's skies, this land was alive with the hum of caravans and the glow of temples. Around 1000 BCE, powerful kingdoms began to emerge in the highlands and deserts of southern Arabia. Among them, the Sabaeans, the Kingdom of Sheba, rose to dominate. Legends tell us of the Queen of Sheba, who traveled north to test the wisdom of King Solomon. While the truth of the story remains debated, it reveals something deeper. Yemen was not a forgotten corner of the world, but a land tied to the great civilizations of the ancient Near East. The source of its power lay in two things: trade and water. The incense trade turned Yemeni kingdoms into some of the wealthiest in the ancient world. Frankincense and myrrh, harvested from desert trees, were burned in temples from Egypt to India. But just as important were Yemen's ingenious dams and terraced fields. The most famous, the Marib Dam, was an engineering marvel that irrigated vast stretches of farmland, making Yemen's mountains green and prosperous. By controlling the incense routes that stretched from Arabia to the Mediterranean, the Sabaeans and their rivals, the Qatabanians, Minaeans, and Hadramites, held immense influence. They were the silent partners in the economies of Rome, Greece, and beyond. But no kingdom lasts forever. The wealth of Yemen was both its blessing and its curse. As trade shifted and rivals grew stronger, cracks began to form, and soon, a new religion rising out of the deserts of Arabia would change Yemen's destiny forever. By the 6th century CE, Yemen was no longer the wealthy crossroads it once had been. The great Marib Dam, once the lifeline of agriculture, collapsed, leading to migrations that weakened the ancient kingdoms. At the same time, Yemen became a battleground for foreign powers. The Himyarite kingdom, the last of the great pre-Islamic dynasties, had already faced invasions from Aksumite Ethiopia and later the Sasanian Persians, both eager to control its ports and trade routes. Into this world of shifting powers came a force unlike any before: Islam. In the early 7th century, news of the Prophet Muhammad's teachings reached Yemen. According to tradition, Yemeni tribes sent envoys to Medina, pledging allegiance and embracing the new faith. Some of the Prophet's closest companions, like Mu'adh ibn Jabal, were sent as governors to help guide the transition. For Yemenis, Islam was not just a religion, but a unifying force. Centuries of tribal rivalries and foreign domination began to give way to a shared identity under the banner of Islam. Mosques rose where temples once stood, and Yemen's scholars and merchants carried the faith across the seas to East Africa, India, and beyond. But unity was fleeting. After the Prophet's death, divisions within the Muslim world spilled into Yemen. The region became a center of Zaydi Shia Islam, distinguishing it from its Sunni neighbors. This religious identity would shape Yemen's politics and conflicts for centuries to come. The faith had bound Yemen to the wider Islamic world, but it also set the stage for centuries of internal strife and foreign intervention. And as empires grew to the north, Yemen would once again find itself caught in the ambitions of powers far greater than itself. As the medieval centuries passed, Yemen's mountains and coasts remained strategically priceless. Whoever controlled Yemen controlled the gateway to the Red Sea, and by extension, the trade routes to Mecca, India, and Africa. It was a prize that empires could not resist. By the 16th century, the rising power of the Ottoman Empire cast its gaze southward. The Ottomans marched into Yemen in 1538, seeking to protect the pilgrimage routes and block Portuguese expansion in the Indian Ocean. Yet ruling Yemen proved far more difficult than conquering it. The rugged mountains and fiercely independent tribes resisted every attempt at centralization. The Ottomans established garrisons in the coastal lowlands, but struggled to hold the highlands. Amid this pressure, the Zaidi imams of northern Yemen emerged as powerful defenders of autonomy. From their stronghold in the mountains, they launched rebellions that pushed back Ottoman control. By 1636, the Zaidis had forced the Ottomans out, ushering in nearly 2 centuries of relative independence. But the world was changing. European powers, driven by their global trade ambitions, began circling Yemen's shores. The British, in particular, recognized the strategic value of Aden. When steamships replaced sailing vessels, Aden became essential as a coaling station on the way to India. In 1839, the British seized Aden, cementing their presence on the Arabian Peninsula. Thus, Yemen was split, the highlands ruled by the Zaidi Imamate, and the coast dominated by foreign powers. A divided Yemen became both a shield and a wound, shaping the rivalries that persist to this day. But the greatest divisions were yet to come, when Cold War politics would split the nation in two. The 20th century brought winds of change across the Arab world, and Yemen was no exception. But instead of unity, these winds tore the country in two. In the north, the old Zaidi Imamate clung to centuries of tradition, ruling from the mountain strongholds around Sana'a. Isolation was its shield, but also its weakness. By the 1960s, revolutionary ideas sweeping through the Arab world reached Yemen. In 1962, army officers, backed by Egypt's Gamal Abdel Nasser, staged a coup, toppling the imam and declaring the Yemen Arab Republic. What followed was a bloody civil war. Royalists, supported by Saudi Arabia, fought republicans backed by Egypt. It was not just a Yemeni struggle, but a battlefield of regional rivalries. Meanwhile, in the south, a different story unfolded. The British had ruled Aden for over a century, but their empire was crumbling. Inspired by anti-colonial movements, Yemeni nationalists launched uprisings, and by 1967, Britain withdrew. What emerged was the People's Democratic Republic of Yemen, the Arab world's only Marxist-Leninist state, aligned with the Soviet Union. Yemen stood divided, a conservative, Saudi-aligned republic in the north, and a socialist, Soviet-backed state in the south. Two governments, two ideologies, two competing visions for the future, locked on the same land. This division became a fault line of the Cold War, pulling Yemen deeper into the struggles of foreign powers. Civil wars, border clashes, and assassinations marked the decades. And yet, even in the midst of division, a question loomed. Could these two Yemens, so different, so opposed, ever become one nation again? The answer would come in the early 1990s, but not without consequences that still haunt Yemen today. By the late 1980s, global politics began to shift. The Cold War, which had kept North and South Yemen locked in rival camps, was nearing its end. The Soviet Union, once the lifeline of South Yemen, was collapsing. Economic hardship and internal turmoil weakened the socialist regime in Aden. Meanwhile, the North, though supported by Saudi Arabia, faced its own political and economic struggles. Out of necessity, not trust, the two Yemens moved toward reconciliation. In 1990, after years of negotiations, the Yemen Arab Republic, North, and the People's Democratic Republic of Yemen, South, officially merged into a single state, the Republic of Yemen, with Sana'a as its capital. For the first time in centuries, Yemen was united, but unity proved easier to declare than to sustain. Rivalries between northern and southern leaders soon resurfaced. By 1994, just 4 years after unification, tensions exploded into open civil war. The South attempted to secede, but northern forces, backed by powerful tribal militias, quickly crushed the rebellion. The victory solidified northern dominance under President Ali Abdullah Saleh, who would rule Yemen for decades. On the surface, the nation appeared whole, but beneath the unity lay deep wounds: regional resentment, economic inequality, and political corruption. The South felt betrayed, treated as a conquered land rather than an equal partner. In the North, Saleh's authoritarian rule tightened, even as discontent simmered. The fragile state of unity was a ticking time bomb. And as the 21st century began, Yemen would find itself pulled into a storm far greater than internal rivalries, one that involved terrorism, foreign interventions, and uprisings that would shake the Middle East itself. The question was no longer just about unity, it was about survival. As the 21st century dawned, Yemen's fragile unity was tested by forces far beyond its borders. The rugged mountains and tribal networks of the country made it a haven for militant groups. After the 9/11 attacks in 2001, Yemen became a frontline in America's war on terror. Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, AQAP, one of the network's most dangerous branches, found sanctuary here, launching deadly attacks both inside Yemen and abroad. But terrorism was only part of Yemen's struggle. President Ali Abdullah Saleh, who had held power since 1978, ruled with a mix of patronage and repression. Corruption flourished, poverty deepened, and public frustration grew. In the north, the Houthi movement, rooted in the Zaidi Shia minority, rose in rebellion, accusing the government of marginalization. In the south, separatist sentiments resurfaced, with many demanding independence once again. Then came the Arab Spring of 2011. Across the Arab world, people demanded change, and in Yemen, tens of thousands flooded the streets calling for Saleh's resignation. After months of unrest, an assassination attempt, and intense pressure from regional powers, Saleh finally stepped down in 2012, handing power to his deputy, Abdrabbu Mansour Hadi. Yet instead of peace, Yemen spiraled deeper into chaos. The Houthis expanded their influence, AQAP entrenched itself further, and the government in Sana'a grew weaker. By the mid-2000s, Yemen was once again on the brink of civil war. Only this time, the conflict would draw in powerful foreign armies, turning Yemen into one of the world's most devastating battlegrounds. What began as a revolution for democracy was about to become a proxy war involving Saudi Arabia, Iran, and beyond. The storm was only beginning. By 2014, the fragile balance in Yemen collapsed. The Houthis, once a regional insurgency in the north, swept southward, seizing Sana'a with surprising speed. President Hadi fled, and suddenly, the Houthis controlled much of the country. To their rivals, this was not just a local rebellion, it was seen as an extension of Iranian influence in the Arabian Peninsula. Saudi Arabia, Yemen's powerful neighbor to the north, would not tolerate what it viewed as an Iranian-backed militia on its doorstep. In March 2015, Riyadh launched a massive military intervention, leading a coalition of Arab states with the support of Western powers. The skies over Yemen filled with airstrikes, while the Houthis dug in, determined to resist. What followed was not a quick war, but a grinding catastrophe. Cities like Aden, Taiz, and Hodeidah became battlefields. Blockades and bombings crippled Yemen's economy, creating one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. Millions were pushed to the brink of famine, children starved, and disease spread unchecked. Yet despite years of bombardment, the Houthis remained unbroken, even striking deep into Saudi territory with drones and missiles. Meanwhile, Yemen fractured further. Southern separatists revived their old cause, clashing with government forces. Terrorist groups exploited the chaos, and foreign powers, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Iran, turned Yemen into a brutal chessboard, each move paid for with Yemeni lives. Now, in 2024, the conflict continues. Just recently, in August 2025, a shocking event rattled the nation: the killing of Abdulaziz bin Habtour, the Houthi Prime Minister, in an airstrike. For some, it was a victory against rebellion. For others, it was the spark of even greater vengeance. After centuries of invasions, unifications, and wars, Yemen's story remains unfinished. The land of ancient kingdoms and prophets stands at a crossroads, peace or endless ruin. From the mighty kingdoms of Saba and Himyar, to the arrival of Islam, to centuries of Ottoman and British conquest, Yemen's history has always been shaped by its geography. Perched at the mouth of the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, Yemen has long been a gateway between Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Whoever controlled this land controlled the flow of trade, ideas, and empires. Yet Yemen's gift has also been its curse. The same geography that once brought wealth through frankincense and spices now makes it a battlefield for regional and global powers. In the 20th century, it was Cold War politics. In the 21st, it became the heart of proxy wars and terrorism. And now, in August 2025, the assassination of Abdulaziz bin Habtour, the Houthi Prime Minister, has pushed Yemen back into the headlines of global news. His death is not just a local affair, it is a reminder that the struggle in Yemen is not over, and that this ancient land remains a fault line where Saudi Arabia, Iran, and the West test their strength. But beneath the politics, beneath the headlines, lies the story of a resilient people who have endured empires, famines, revolutions, and wars. Yemen's past is not just a chronicle of conflict, it is a testament to survival. The question that remains is this: will Yemen's future finally bring peace, or will history once again repeat its tragic cycle? Only time will tell.